coming up. It never crossed my mind that I could use it this way. And I was also very surprised the first time you told me it might change with time, because for
It
me,
does.
mine feels very definite. It feels very much like my energy. But now
Mhm.
I'm open to, if at some point I feel like I need an upgrade or a change. And that also
Yeah.
happens with some people who work with spiritual names. Sometimes the spiritual names, or you
Mhm.
change your name because your frequency is changing and you're becoming a new person. So it's like you leave those stages behind you, and then you
It
use
does.
these symbols, no, to
Yeah.
represent who you are, because we all live many lives in one life. So of
It
course that
does.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, it's important what you say, because the coat of arms does not represent who we are, but it represents how we go from an assumption of who we are, the ego, towards the self.
Mm.
So how do we move towards our truth? So the coat of arms is actually a mode of action, more than that it represents anything of who we are.
Yeah.
But in the myth, the coat of arms is also shown to others so that others can recognize the quest of the other, not the person itself. So you can see it in this drawing, this picture.
Mm.
You cannot recognize anybody because there's a helmet, there's a whole armor,
Yeah.
but through the shield you may know who the other person is.
Hello, Synchronauts. How are you? Welcome to another Elysian Roundtable meeting with my dear teacher and friend, Mike Bais from the Netherlands, from Circle of Avalon. How are you, Mike?
Very well, thank you. Here we go again. I'm looking forward to another episode here.
Yeah, it will be the last from this Gregorian year. My name is Aida. I'm from Mexxicamelot here in Mexico. Today is a big day for us Mexicans because everybody's celebrating the Day of the Virgin of Guadalupe. So it's really auspicious, I think, that we are recording and releasing this video today. So I'm really happy to be doing this today. Thank you, Mike. And so we will be continuing with this topic of the round table, and big surprises because, for instance, we were talking about three different tables, but it's not three different tables, it's three different levels from the same archetypal energy. And I always thought, well, maybe the first table is the original one, no, the one where Jesus sat down with his apostles. And then apparently the closest to us in terms of mythology is the one from Camelot. So we said in our last session that today, for this one, we would be talking about the coat of arms. So I don't know if there's anything else you would like to add, Mike, before we go on to our presentation for today.
Well, maybe, I don't know. It's good to have just a brief
A
walkthrough,
recap. Mhm.
because maybe there are some listeners who were not there the last time, and even for the ones who are now here again, it might be good to just introduce a few of the mythological ideas about that table before we start moving on to the next part of it. Do you agree?
Okay.
We do that?
Yes. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
sure. So I'm going to start sharing screen now, and
Yeah.
I hope that everybody likes the presentation. I loved it, like the one that I found. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about the coat of arms. And so last time we were looking at this image of the tree of life. I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to share about it, or how this connects with
Mm.
the round table and with the coat of arms.
Yeah. Well, like we talked about the other time, or times even, is that the metaphysics of the tree of life is a very good way to describe the mythological way and the stories, the legends, and the myth of the round table. Because otherwise, it may just be a story. And even then, it's a beautiful story and wonderful poetry. But if you want to apply it in a spiritual way, the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life can really help us with this. So again, we are talking about the three tables, and maybe with the pointer, Aida, you can point out the lowest table is also the lowest circle there. And that's what we call in Kabbalah the lower face of the tree. So the circle enwraps a kite-like shape there in the tree of life. And those 5 circles, these Sephirot they're called, and they make up within the center Yesod the lowest sphere, or the lowest of tables, so to speak. So that's the sphere of action and the table of Camelot. So here the knights and ladies of the round table are being asked to act. And most of the actions, if it's not, excuse me, connected with the other circles, most of these actions come from the deep unconscious level, or sometimes said from the personal consciousness, which is concentrated and focused in the Yesod, in the foundation, sometimes called the lunar consciousness, because although we are conscious of ourselves in the world, at the same time, the content that drives us is mainly unconscious. So, to speak, lunar. That's why that place in the middle of the table is called the seat of enchantment. If the listeners all remember this, and otherwise, here it is, the place where we are under the enchantment or under the spell of the world of phenomena. So everything in time and space, the world around us, but also our interpretations to the world. And in the myth, this is called the forest of, the forest more or less of low grass. So Camelot is situated, the castle, the kingdom, in a huge forest, and that's low grass. That's the forest of enchantment. Now, for all of us, that is the world around us. Society, the human-made world is enchanted. So I hope that makes sense. I know it does to you, Aida, but for all the listeners here. So then we spoke about how do you, as a seeker for the Grail, which we saw at the center of the round table at the beginning of the whole story, so to speak. How do we move from the unconscious level of the enchanted forest up to Tiferet? So to the highest point of the first circle. Yeah. And in it you see beauty, but it's also the sphere of the self, the psychological self. In other words, from the ego Yesod to Tiferet self, that path in between there, that is the path of honesty, and also an evolvement of self-consciousness, a development of self-consciousness. Now, to do that, we need a few tools, so to speak. And one of them is, and you can do that in a practical way, is that all the knights and ladies, they construct the so-called code of arms. So, what is that? The coat of arms is like a shield. Sometimes it was a little shield that was worn on the shoulder, but it could be an actual shield. And of course, now it's not very practical to, run around with shields on the street. So you might just draw on paper a shield, and in it, you write a certain intention. Now, the coat of arms is built up of a symbol and a motto, where from of that symbolize how to get from the ego consciousness to the self.
So we're moving on from here to here, and one of the tools that we're going to use is the coat of arms.
The coat of arms, exactly.
Okay.
So we all may visualize this as a way of saying, I'm wearing a shield, and this is representing my way out of the conditioned mind, the conditioned state of being. And this is how I'm going to do it. And that is represented by a symbol and a motto. The motto in the myth is sometimes called a battle cry.
Ah, of course. Yeah, that makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense.
yeah. It's an
Okay.
expression of the feelings, the heart, saying, I'm going forwards in this direction.
I just want to add something. I just remembered for some crazy reason, uh,
Mm,
the movie of the Sleeping Beauty by like the Disney version.
yeah,
And so the prince, what's his name? I forgot his name. He is given by the fairies, the fairy godmothers of Aurora.
yeah,
They give him a shield that
yeah.
it doesn't have a coat of arms, but I'm thinking about the mythological implications of that. Like
Mm,
they give him the sword and they give him the shield, and that shield maybe doesn't have a coat of arms, but it represents very well what you're saying. Like we have this special shield. I can't remember what I think it was the sword of truth and the coat of, I can't remember right now. But the thing is,
yeah,
he was using it to fight the dragon. Again, another archetype that is coming back from the Arthurian myths, no?
very
So I
much.
think
Yeah.
it's very, very interesting. Like there comes this magical world that's gonna give
Mm.
you these tools to protect you so that you can move on onto your quest and slay your dragon. Does this make any sense at all?
Very much, very much. And another point that is quite important that comes from what you're saying, the example, is
Mm-hmm.
that the coat of arms should be made by you, not by
Yeah.
someone else. And the whole myth is sometimes quite good in explaining where it goes wrong. So, for example, there are certain adventures of knights who trade their shield, or they see a much more brighter shield somewhere, and they think,
Mm.
okay, I'm going to lay my shield aside. I'm going to pick this one up because it's just nicer. So they
Mm.
are under the enchantment of the world, the glitter or glamour. And but what they do is they put away their intention how to get to the self. So there's a lot of messages in here. So
Wow.
the
Do you
coat
want
of
to
arms
move
should
on
be
to
made
the
by you.
do you want to move on to the slide where we have the knight with his coat of arms? Well,
I
with
want
his
to,
shield?
but let
Yeah?
me say one thing about this in the Tree of
Sure.
Life.
Ah,
So
sure. Please go ahead.
the uh, the written part of the coat of arms is coming from Hot. So that
Ah,
is the written word. That is, yeah, the symbolic form. And then the battle cry comes from Netzach. That is the feeling expression, the emotion behind it. So together, Hot and Netzach make up the coat of arms, the shield itself, that will catapult us hopefully out of the unconscious state and the reactive nature of our ego.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow. I did
that's
not
the
see that
intention.
coming.
Yeah. Well, we have to, of course, every day again wear the shield. I'm going to do it like this, of course, but we have to
Yeah.
be reminded that
Mhm.
this is our coat of arms and this is my intention.
This makes a lot of sense. And now that I see it, the whole lower face in a way, it looks like a kite, but you could also say that it looks like a shield as well. So if you
It is.
connect the
Yeah,
points, then you can generate this coat of arms and this shield that is gonna help you move forward in your quest. Mm,
exactly. Yeah.
wow,
Mm.
that's really really cool.
Yeah. So by all
Awesome.
means, you can show the other picture
Okay,
of the
just let me know
knight.
because we have. Let me tell you, Synchronauts, we have many images that we're gonna be talking about. We're gonna be talking about the Grail. So you want to move on directly right now to the knights, the knight
Well,
image?
we could do that just to show for a moment how that looks like. Visual is always
Exactly.
nice. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So here we have just an example. There's nothing written, no words on the shield, but for now, this is the white unicorn, and whatever that means for this knight, because it's a very subjective expression, of course, very personal.
Yeah.
Um, but this might be the symbol for this particular night. And important to say is that the knight in the stories can be a male or a female.
Good to know
So
that.
for all our dear ladies listening now, this is not just a male enterprise. The seeker, of course, is the man and the woman equally.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So the shield can be worn by either of them, and it is very personal. That's why you have to make it, first of all.
Yeah.
And something to remember is that the coat of arms may change over time, because as you change on the path.
I was very surprised when you told me that, because I want to share that, and I didn't think about showing mine, but I created my own coat of arms a couple of years ago, and I've shown you my coat of arms. But it was very intuitive. So what you're saying about you can be a man or a woman, doesn't matter. The quest is for everybody, and if you listen to your soul is gonna guide you, because I was guided to make this symbol for myself, and it has a motto, and it has the different symbols, no?
Yes. Yeah.
And but I've never thought until now to maybe print it and have it close to me all the time whenever I feel like, for example, and I'm gonna apologize, Synchronauts, because I have a bit of a cold, so at some point you might see that I'm going to be coughing or with a Kleenex or whatever. So I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do to stop that. But for example, right now that I'm feeling a bit weak and tired because I'm not feeling so well, then I can just go to my coat of arms. No, we have other symbols as well in the ASA. We might talk about that some other times that I've been using. But you can also like take your coat of arms to give you that strength and to move forward. And maybe some of you who are listening to us right now have already felt that impulse as I have to draw. I'm not very good drawing, but I go on the internet and I just put all the images together and create my own images for whatever purposes I need. And that's what happened with my coat of arms. So you don't have to be very good at drawing, maybe, but you can just go look for images on the internet, or maybe you know somebody who knows how to use one of these softwares to do some editing, and you can tell them, can you help me? Like, you're gonna be obviously the creative director of your coat of arms, but ask for help and then use it. No, I was not, it never crossed my mind that I could use it this way. And I was also very surprised the first time you told me it might change with time, because for
It
me,
does.
mine feels very definite. It feels very much like my energy. But now I'm open to, if at some point I feel like I need an upgrade or a change. And that also happens with some people who work with spiritual names. Sometimes the spiritual names, or you change your name because your frequency is changing and you're becoming a new person. So it's like you leave those stages behind you, and then you
It
use
does.
these symbols, no, to
Yeah.
represent who you are, because we all live many lives in one life. So of
It
course that
does.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, it's important what you say, because the coat of arms does not represent who we are, but it represents how we go from an assumption of who we are, the ego, towards the self. So how do we move towards our truth? So the coat of arms is actually a mode of action, more than that it represents anything of who we are.
Yeah.
But in the myth, the coat of arms is also shown to others so that others can recognize the quest of the other, not the person itself. So you can see it in this drawing, this picture. You cannot recognize anybody because there's a helmet, there's a whole armor. But through the shield, you may know who the other person is.
Of course.
You know, from its actions.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
like you said, you can, like from the internet, easily print a blanco shield on an A4, and then in it you can draw something. And yeah, it's always, it has a preference if you do it yourself, even if you're not artistically, maybe very skilled, it doesn't matter. And so how do you come to a symbol and a motto? how we do that here at the round table communion and companionship is through meditation. So you meditate upon what do I need to move out of my current state of ignorance, and towards a higher truth. Now, what I'm saying now is a formulation, not written in stone. But if you understand what I mean, then you can do the formulation yourself. And maybe it doesn't come immediately. And another way of looking at what the coat of arms might be is just looking at life, at your life. What do I need to progress? That's another meditation.
Of course.
So just reflect on what's happening. What we do is the drawings that we make are put at the back of our seats at the round table. So everyone has its particular seat, and we recognize where one is, where one sits, because of the shields at the back of the chairs.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Wow.
Yeah, it's a nice way of doing.
All
So,
right.
yeah, the coat of arms, and you can write it with C-O-A-T, but you can also funnily say enough, the code of arms, so C-O-D-E.
Ah, okay.
It's like a code through which you act.
Okay. Yeah. And in this present, you want to go to the slide from the coat of arms?
Yeah, sure.
Here it is.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I put as code as the original one, but now what you're saying makes a lot of sense. No, it's not only a code, but it's your code. How are you going to move in the world? That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's never used as such in the myth, in the romances, but in contemporary times, why not use that little extra word in it?
Yeah, that makes sense. Good adaptation.
Yeah. So here we have it, the round table. This could be the first table, the table of action. And in the center, we have the Grail, the symbol of the spirit. And at first, they see it for a moment unveiled. But most of the time, it is covered by a veil so that its radiance is seen, but not in its full glory. Now, all these particular persons at the round table, as you can see, they have different shields, different coat of arms. So their mode of action all leads, pointing with the swords inwards, to the same goal, but their path is different. It is personal. Their problems, their challenges. In the East, they would say their karma is different from each other. So they have a common quest, a common goal, but the way towards it is not equal to one another.
Yeah.
And that's being recognized and honored very much there in this idea. Yeah. So that makes this esoteric drawing, this concept, very spiritual and non-dogmatic. Because it's based upon certain principles, but you still have to do it yourself. And then at the beginning, there is this idea coming from Sir Gawain, who says, we have to go in pursuit of this grail all on our own, each individually, and go into the forest where it is most dark and where the growth is the thickest. So they have to make the path of life themselves and find their own challenges.
I think it's important. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. It's very important what you say, where it's the thickest and the hardest. That's going to be your path.
Yeah, exactly. If you are following the path that's already there, you are following somebody else's path.
Exactly.
And that's okay, but it is not the path of the seeker. It's the path of the follower.
When you're ready to move from being a follower to a seeker, then you gotta change to your own path, definitely.
That's it. Yeah. And again, it's not a superior path in a sense, but it's different. You know, if you go to a certain institute, a religious institute, and they tell you how to go about it, that's not the dark path, but that's the right-hand path, so to speak. So that's the dogmatic path. The left-hand path, nothing to do with evil, but in the whole esoteric world, the left-hand path is the path of self-discovery of the seeker.
Yeah, and it's better because if you're taking a path that is already like shown to you and it's like easy to navigate, when the challenges in life come, you will not be prepared to face them because it's like it's more or less like what is happening to me right now with my immune system, no? The more you're out in the world, the more it becomes strong, no? But if you're all the time guarded and you do things like the easy way or you're just taking somebody else's path, then it's not strong enough so that when the big things come, you have everything you need to fight it. So I think it's important to note that as well, because when you're on your own path as a seeker, and it's gonna be challenging and it's gonna hurt, and there are gonna days where you're gonna be like, I give up. I don't want to be doing this anymore.
Yeah.
But then you start to see the fruits of your work, and you see that when bigger challenges come, that you can navigate those better. And then the other part important to say is that even though, as you were saying, we're all on our each path, but you have these companions around you. And also when you need help, they will come to your help, and also you will go help them whenever they need you. So you're not really alone. Yes, it is a lonely path, but you're not alone.
Yeah, certainly. Well, that is something we're going to see a little bit more when we go deeper into that second circle, the second table, which is the table of the Grail. And there we will look at not the coat of arms, but the code of chivalry or the code of honor. But that will be for another episode.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you're completely right. Very important that this is still, in a sense, a group of individual souls that gather. In Kabbalah, they would say this is the school of the soul. People who want to learn about their essence, about their authentic self, and how to find it. And that's the common ground where the people of the round table meet.
Yeah.
And the deepest sense of self is the Grail. That's the divine self, which in Kabbalah they would say that's the Shekhinah. That's the embodiment of God within creation.
So that's what we aspire to, right? That's what's going to guide us to the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, that's the miracle. That's the wonder that we may perceive within existence. Yeah.
Wow.
But like I just said, it's most of the time it's veiled. So we see glimpses of this miraculous creation. Nature does it for us. So in a beautiful mountain or a landscape or the sea or in certain animals, you just see the beauty of it. Sometimes in human beings, of course, or in the unseen world for that matter. Yeah.
All right.
So that's the pursuit of the Grail. And that's what the coat of arms is good for. It's a reminder of what our quest is about, from the personal and the mode of action into the knowledge of the self, or Tiferet on the tree of life.
Okay. Wow. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a weapon so much, the shield, for defense, although you may come up with a certain arguments for using the shield, the coat of arms as such. But it's more like a guide, a symbol of guidance towards where you need to go.
You know what? It makes me think about the card in Tarot of the Hermit, that he's holding this light, this lantern.
Yeah.
So maybe like the coat of arms is a kind of like an equivalent of that lantern, no, guiding you through the darkness on your path.
Well, it's very interesting because I hope people who are listening know a little bit about tarot. The hermit is the one who has found the Grail. So he's no longer a seeker, but he's a grail bearer. So he has found it within, and that light is now being shown on that huge mountain. So so that it is, recognizable like a beacon, and the seeker can find it.
Wow.
So the hermit is the one who found,
Okay.
and the one who carries the light. Yeah. And this is not just something from the tarot, but also in the Grail mythology. There are a lot of hermits running around there in the forest. And when the seekers are lost, when they're just desperate and don't know where to go any longer, there's always the hermit who shows them the light, not literally with a lantern, but sometimes with good advice or, compassion, whatever it is. So that's always the same office, so to speak, that the hermit has. Yeah. So, the coat of arms, and again, it may change over time, and nobody can say when, because that's up to the organic process of your quest. So you may feel after a while that the symbol and the motto are not longer applicable. And that you need to attest, so to speak, by reflection in your daily life. Do I have achieved somehow this part of the quest? Did I found, or did I transgress certain parts of myself? And then organically, or through meditation or insight, you may find another meaning for your coat of arms. But for most of us, it doesn't stop. It doesn't end. There's always something to learn.
Yeah, as long as we're incarnate, that's how it's gonna be, definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's only a few of us who will eventually stop seeking.
Yeah.
And that's what you just said, rightfully. That's the archetype of the hermit. He doesn't need to seek any longer because he has found the one who seeks within.
Wow.
That's quite mystical, what I'm saying now. But the one who seeks within you, who wants to be found, is the same thing that is being sought after. So you see, there's a loop in here. So God wishes to behold itself. And that's why the impulse for seeking comes from the deepest divine source within you to find itself.
Yeah, it makes me think a little bit about sunflowers, no? Like they're always trying to go towards the sun. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
No,
very
because
much.
we're connected. We're one. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. So yeah. And on the quest with the coat of arms, sometimes you may find brothers and sisters, ladies and knights who accompany you on your quest, because there's a mutual, although you have a different coat of arms, but there's a mutual path. It may be for a day, a week, or a year, whatever it is, but you can travel and seek together after the Grail. And sometimes, because of that, you form a group or a little school. Can be online, can be physically somewhere, but you just notice, this is a very particular group of souls that can do the work together.
That's really interesting because it has happened to me when I'm teaching the Galactic Mayan synchronometer and talking about the token. I have students that come and go. And before it used to frustrate me a lot, like, why don't they stay? But you've just made a great point, because be as a teacher, a guide, or be as a student, everything comes and goes in cycles. So you're supposed to outgrow certain groups, and once the purpose is fulfilled, then you have to let them move on, or you yourself have to move on, and it's all perfect. No, so I think it's something important for everybody to be reminded of, whether you are a student or you are a teacher. If this happens, then that's because whatever purpose there was to get together for this personal quest or particular quest, it has been served. So now people will come and go, or you will come and go from different groups, and that's perfectly fine. It's part of the bigger quest, or the personal quest, right?
Very much. Yeah. And
Makes
of
a lot of
course,
sense.
behind it is a certain code again, certain ethics. But there should always be the freedom to come and go, under the rule of
That's
certain
important.
respect, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the entrance to Camelot should be open for the seeker. If one, thirsts for the waters to quench the soul, that source should be open. And that's what a school of the soul should do. So also what Camelot should do. Yeah. And be of advice or assistance. And sometimes they even say the castle of Camelot is a refuge for those who look for safety or shelter and guidance, teaching, or brother, sisterhood, companionship.
Yeah. Wow.
So coat of arms. So I hope that first of all is a practical way for the listeners to start moving if they want to apply this. And think about this, meditate upon it, look in your daily life, what do I need to change to go from this state to another? Excuse me. So, but apart from this, I don't have still time for another little topic.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, I think, we can take, let's take another 10 minutes.
Ah, wonderful. So another way or another symbol to use to move from the lower circle into the next table or circle is
moving
wonderful.
from here to here.
Yeah, to that circle, which has, of course, a different center there, which is Tiferet, is the self. Yeah. So the self, or Tiferet, is also equal to kingship. Now, this is not just a Camelot mythology kind of thing. This is very Kabbalistic. So in classical Kabbalah, like in books of the Zohar, they talk about Tiferet as being the Malek, or the king. Okay. This is not just an earthly king. This is a psychological, spiritual king, occupying a certain position within you. And now again, we are talking about archetypes. So the king is an archetype within a woman and a man.
Yes. I think that's very important
to
for people to pay attention. Synchronauts, pay attention to this, because it is true. It might be a bit confusing at first, because I remember the first time you told me about it, I'm like, no, king and queen, what are you talking about? No.
Yeah.
But you're talking about an archetype energy that applies to both male and female. So this is important to notice. Yeah.
Exactly. So just very briefly, but the tree of life is made up of 3 columns or 3 pillars. And the 2 outer pillars are the masculine and feminine pillar. And we are, as a human being, the tree of life. So we are made up of masculine and feminine principles or archetypes. Now, one of them is the king, or it might be the queen. The one is masculine, the other one is feminine. But we have to understand this has nothing to do with gender, but these are psychological archetypes. They are essences that are being clothed in a certain form. Exactly. So these are partners in polarity that complement each other. So in this example,
that's it. Yeah.
So this little archetype here, the king, another time we will talk about the queen, is therefore applicable to a man and a woman.
And that's why it's in the middle.
Very much. Yeah.
Now I understand better.
Yeah. So that's what it says in the worldly sense of the word. It's rulership, kingship. But now this is first of all rulership over oneself, or rulership over the lower circle, so the natural part of ourselves. How are you able to rule that? Or are you ruled by the natural instincts and impulses?
Wow. Makes a lot of
So there's a certain act that the king-to-be has to fulfill to be able to practice the position or the office of king. It's something that we all have to do. Otherwise, we will not be in that position of Tiferet, of the king. And that is something that happens at the very beginning of the whole story of Camelot, or Camelot didn't even exist, but the whole story of Arthur, the young boy, the young lad who needs to fulfill his destiny and hasn't got a clue about it. And then through a certain magical setup, there is this, in a certain square in London, the mage, Merlin, has orchestrated a certain scenario there. So what we see, and you have a picture of that, is a sword, which is being, now it's here in the forest, but it doesn't matter. And in that stone, there is this sword completely stuck. And the promise is that whoever can draw that sword from stone will be the future king. And this is a symbol for the action that we have to undertake to become king.
You have to take the sword out of the stone.
Exactly. That's it. Now, what does this all mean? It seems very simple, but the whole of Britain couldn't draw the sword from stone. There was only one person. What this says is that most parts of us cannot draw the sword from stone. A lot of internal personalities or sub-personalities are not able to draw the sword from stone. They're not made to be a king. But there's a part, which is the self, which is potentially already king, who can do it. But first you have to know what is holding the sword down in that rock. So what is the nature of the stone? Now, one interpretation is that the stone is, so to speak, like the condensation of unconscious ideas and feelings, conditionings that do not allow us, permit us to draw the sword of our own kingship, of our own authority, of our self-will, to really, take up our own fate into our own hands and to move us into the position of Tiferet. So what I do, for example, with the people here is to meditate upon what is this stone? What is it in my unconscious that holds me back, that prevents me from drawing the sword from stone? And again, like with the code of arms, maybe it doesn't come immediately. So people, be patient when you try to do this. But it's really worthwhile. It is a simple symbol, but it's really powerful in its simplicity. So do not go to the sword immediately, but first put your attention on the stone. What is it within me that hinders my progression, being and becoming a king? And my experience is the most beautiful things come out of these kind of meditations. Sometimes a bit confrontational, but that's all in the game here. But people most of the time find things like, I do not love myself enough, or I'm afraid to be great, for example. I'm afraid to be responsible. Those kind of things. All very logical, very human, of course. Yeah.
Definitely. Wow. Wow, that's very
So,
interesting to ponder about this. It's important. So now, whomever is listening to us, you can start doing this inner work even on your own. Start
yes.
thinking, no, what is my stone? How can I connect with my coat of arms and begin bringing it into manifestation? No, and obviously,
Yeah.
if they have any questions, they can reach out to you, right, Mike?
Every time, all the time. Yeah.
Excellent.
They know my email address, I think, and otherwise we'll give it again.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
through
sure.
Facebook.
I don't know
Yeah.
if there's anything else you would like to say before, just to wrap up, just before we again
Sure.
share our social media.
Yeah, well, I think that we have now two wonderful symbols how to move to the second circle. So we haven't arrived really in the second circle, the second table, but we really have to, I think, emphasize this because it's worthwhile for everyone to really go through these two practices, the shield on the one hand, and to investigate, to research this symbol of the stone. What is holding your sword into that stone? Yeah.
Wow. Super, super interesting. Thank you so much, Mike. Now, yes, can you remind us how we can reach you on your social media? Where can we find you, please?
Sure. The most that I use is Facebook. So if you just type in my name, Mike Bais, you will find me. Also under the other page, Circle of Avalon, which is our connected together. And then my email address is mikebais, just written as one word, and then at rocketmail.com.
Very good. Excellent.
So any questions, just send them out.
Well, yeah, or you can leave them here in the comments. So thank you so
Sure.
much, dear Mike, for this amazing
My
session.
pleasure.
I think it's very, very practical. No, it's theoretical, but at the same time, you're giving us important practice. So Synchronauts, you can start practicing on your own. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so that you will know when we're bringing more videos here with Mike. And just make sure you share with people who might be interested, and don't be shy and leave us some comments or questions over here. We check them out, and we're very keen to know what you guys are thinking about all of these amazing topics that we're sharing over here. So once more, thank you, dear Mike. Thank you, Synchronauts, and we'll see each other next Gregorian year. So happy holidays, everyone. Happy solstice, Merry Christmas, Merry Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. Merry Kwanzaa, and a Happy New Year to everybody that is watching us. So thank you so much, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.